Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. After being reborn, I made it my mission to become the kind of woman Ethan hated the most. He liked girls with long, flowing hair, gentle, quiet, and graceful. So I cut off my waist-length black hair, went surfing and skiing with friends, and stayed out all night laughing and playing around. In my previous life, I didn't learn the truth until after we got married. Ethan had always been in love with his childhood sweetheart, Emma. His mother had forced them apart by threatening her own life, and he had no choice but to marry me only because I looked a little like Emma. After our marriage, he stayed cold and distant, never letting me close. He kept his connection with Emma, their relationship murky and unresolved. I cried, I argued, I begged. But in the end, on my way to ask for a divorce, I got into a car accident and died miserably, full of resentment. After coming back to life, I chose a different path. My friends were confused. "Are you doing all this to get Ethan's attention?" they asked. "No," I said, my voice calm. "I'm doing it to stay far away from him." When my best friend invited me to her birthday party, I decided to go. The private room was buzzing when I arrived. Music, laughter, chatter filling the air. No one noticed me at first. Then as I walked up to my best friend, she suddenly exclaimed, "Rachel, you cut your hair." Her voice was loud, and instantly everyone turned to look. The room went quiet for a moment, and their eyes all landed on my short, ear-length hair. Their expressions shifted subtly. I smiled, unbothered. "Yeah, I just got it cut." The stylist said, "This look suits me. What do you think? Does it look good?" "It looks great. Really great." Several people chimed in politely, but as they said it, their gazes drifted toward one direction. Then a soft but cutting voice broke the air. "I don't think it looks good." It was Emma. She seemed to realize what she just said and quickly covered her mouth, looking regretful. "Oh, sorry, Rachel. I didn't mean to say that out loud. You know me. I always speak before I think. You're not mad, right?" Before I could reply, Ethan stood up. His expression was calm, but his tone was sharp. "She's right. It doesn't look good at all." The words meant to protect Emma made the atmosphere turn awkward. I didn't care. I smiled faintly. "It's fine," I said lightly. "I like it, and that's what matters." Ethan called out to me. "Come with me," he said, walking toward the door. I followed him out. We stood facing each other in the hallway, the dim corridor lights casting shadows across his face. His expression was hard to read, but his voice carried suppressed anger. "Rachel," he said coldly, "who told you to cut your hair like that? Didn't I say I like long hair?" "As my girlfriend, you should," I interrupted quietly. "Let's break up." For a second, the air froze. He frowned, about to speak when shouting erupted from inside the room. Emma and our friend Luke were arguing. Ethan's brows furrowed even more. He clicked his tongue impatiently, muttered, "Do whatever you want," and turned back toward the room, leaving me standing there alone. I watched his back disappear and exhaled softly. Ethan and I had known each other since high school. During freshman year, I broke my leg while dancing and had to use crutches for months. Because of that, I was often bullied. People called me Limpy, tripped me on purpose, even stole my homework. Once, when I was crying helplessly because I couldn't catch up to them, Ethan appeared. Sometimes your heart begins to race for someone at a certain moment. He didn't just help me. He protected me. For the next 3 years, even after my leg healed, I continued to follow him. It became a habit. Everyone knew I liked him. When he said he liked girls with long hair, I grew mine to my waist. When he said he liked gentle, quiet girls, I quit the hip-hop club, stopped skiing in the mountains, and stopped surfing at the beach. I gave up my friends, my hobbies, and everything that made me who I was, reshaping myself into the kind of girl he said he liked until I could barely recognize the person in the mirror. And finally, my efforts were not in vain. When Ethan and I officially became a couple, he even took me to meet his family. They had an adopted daughter named Emma. The first time I met her, she clung to Ethan's arm affectionately and said, "Rachel, you're so beautiful. My brother's really lucky to have you. Haha. I think you and I even look a bit alike." Her tone was light, but beneath those words, I sensed a faint trace of hostility. I didn't take it seriously at the time, nor did I notice the momentary stiffness in Ethan's expression. In my previous life, Ethan and I got married smoothly, but after the wedding he remained distant and cold. It wasn't until Emma sent me a video of the two of them together that I finally learned the truth. In the video, they were doing what only a husband and wife should do, completely unashamed. Her taunting words cut through me like a knife. If your adoptive mother hadn't interfered, the title of Mrs. Adams would have been mine. You think marrying him means you've won? Not necessarily. He doesn't love you. You're just my substitute. Shocked and furious, I coughed up blood. I grabbed my documents and went to find Ethan to divorce him. But on the way, I got into a car accident and died miserably, full of resentment. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back to the time when we had just gotten into college. This time I swore to become the kind of woman Ethan despised the most. I would no longer live as Emma's pathetic replacement. When I returned to the private room, Emma was crying in Ethan's arms. His expression was cold and sharp as he turned to Luke and said, "Luke, apologize to my sister." Luke's voice was tight with anger. "Why should I apologize to that fake sweetheart? It was your sister who started bad-mouthing Rachel first. If anyone owes an apology, it's her." To Rachel? Emma's eyes were red, her tone pitiful. "But I was only telling the truth. Is that wrong?" She looked up at Ethan, her eyes brimming with tears, appearing as if she'd been terribly wronged. Luke scoffed. "Then when I called you fake and said you had a sharp tongue, I was just telling the truth too, right? So I guess I'm not wrong either." "Enough, Luke," Ethan snapped. His tall figure stepped forward, radiating pressure, but Luke didn't back down. Just then they both noticed me standing by the doorway. A glimmer flashed in Emma's eyes as she quickly called out, "Rachel, thank goodness you're here." From the whispers around the room, I already knew what had happened. After Ethan and I had stepped out earlier, Emma had started talking behind my back, saying I was petty and mean. It all started because once Ethan and I had gone on a trip to the Maldives. Emma wanted to come along. I politely told her that I wanted to spend some time alone with Ethan, but it was as if she couldn't take the hint. She came anyway. On the first day, Emma didn't want to go out because she was afraid of getting sunburned. So Ethan stayed at the hotel and played games with her the entire day. On the second day, after much persuading, I finally got her to come along. But then she complained of stomach pains and feeling unwell. Ethan immediately booked the earliest flight home. The trip I had spent months planning, the one I dreamed of, was ruined just like that. I was upset and couldn't help losing my temper at her. Emma cried and said, "I'm sorry, Rachel. I just wanted to get closer to my future sister-in-law. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Ethan tried to calm me down, but he was clearly taking Emma's side. "Come on, Rachel. She meant well. Besides, Emma is family. If we get married, she'll be your sister too. Can't you cut her a little slack?" Family. Sister. Those words made me swallow my anger once again because back then I truly loved Ethan and wanted to become his real family. For him, I was willing to change myself, to give up my pride and endure humiliation. But no matter how much I tolerated, Emma was never satisfied. Behind my back, she would talk to others. "Maybe I'm just sensitive," she'd say sweetly. But I think Rachel was really petty to get so angry over something that small. It makes her seem a bit mean-spirited. Luke overheard that and, unable to stand it, started arguing with her. That's what led to the scene I walked into now. And when Emma saw me, there wasn't the slightest trace of shame for being caught talking behind my back. Only the smug confidence of someone who knew she had nothing to fear. She looked at me with wide, innocent eyes and said softly, "Rachel, I was just speaking casually, that's all. You don't mind, right?" Emma said sweetly, turning to Ethan with a pitiful look. "Can't you control your friend a little? He's overreacting. Isn't he just trying to stir up trouble between us?" She glanced smugly at Luke, clearly confident that I would, like before, choose to stay silent for Ethan's sake, to appease him, to keep the peace, even if it meant turning against the friend who had stood up for me. But this time she was bound to be disappointed. I looked straight into her eyes and said clearly, "Actually, I do mind." The whole room fell silent. Everyone froze for a moment, even Luke. His eyes widened slightly and he stared at me speechless. I smiled faintly at him. Emma blinked in disbelief, her lips twitching. "Rachel, what did you just say?" I repeated slowly that I do mind people talking behind my back. "Is that what you call good manners?" Her face turned red instantly. She looked up at Ethan with teary eyes, her voice trembling just enough to sound fragile. Ethan. Tears shimmered at the corners of her eyes, making her look heartbreakingly pitiful. Ethan's calm, handsome face darkened slightly, though I couldn't tell what he was thinking. His voice when he finally spoke was cold. All this just because you changed your hairstyle. She only said it didn't look good, and now you're throwing a tantrum. Don't go overboard, Rachel. Calm down. We'll talk again in a few days. I almost laughed in his eyes. Me breaking up with him, me standing up to Emma. All of it was just me being emotional. He never once thought I might be serious. After they left, Luke looked at me, guilt in his eyes. Sorry, Rachel. I didn't mean to make things worse. Maybe I should apologize to Emma. If they yell at me or hit me, I'll take it. He genuinely looked worried. He knew how much Ethan meant to me, how far I was willing to go for him, but that was all in the past. I reached out and stopped him. No need. Ethan and I broke up. Luke's eyes widened. Wait, really? Really? I nodded softly, then suddenly wrapped my arms around him. My chin rested on his shoulder, and for a moment I wanted to cry. Luke and I had known each other since we were kids. When he was little, he got sick and lost all his hair from medication, so the other kids used to tease him. I'd always been the loud, straightforward type. Anyone who laughed at him, I'd fight them without hesitation. He'd relied on me ever since. We shared similar interests, both loving sports like skiing and surfing. Over time we became close friends. But everything changed after I met Ethan. I grew out my hair, started acting gentle and soft-spoken, stopped surfing, stopped skiing, stopped dancing. One by one my friends drifted away because I wasn't the same person anymore. Only Luke stayed. I smiled faintly and whispered, Luke, thank you for not giving up on me. He flushed slightly and patted my shoulder awkwardly. Come on, it's just a breakup. Don't worry, there are plenty of better guys out there. I'll help you find one. I didn't take his words seriously. When I got back to campus, the first thing I did was withdraw from the art club and join the hip-hop dance club instead. When I handed my withdrawal form to the supervising teacher, several members were there, including Emma. One of them asked, "Why is Rachel quitting? Doesn't she know she'll lose credits for this?" Another replied casually, "Why else?" She tried to imitate Emma, but now that Emma's outshining her, she can't handle it. That second voice belonged to Emma's roommate, naturally speaking up for her. Emma's face showed a mix of pride and false modesty, satisfied but pretending not to be. I knew exactly why she didn't want me to leave. The art club was her territory, her safe zone, one place where she could always outshine me. Emma had been learning art since she was a child, and her skills were indeed impressive. I, on the other hand, was just an amateur. Back then, when I started dating Ethan, he once said that girls who could paint always looked elegant and refined. So I gave up all my other hobbies and focused solely on learning how to paint. But since I'd started late, there was no way I could compare to Emma, who had been studying art since she was a child. College clubs were a very practical place, especially since many activities were tied to academic credits. As one of the most skilled members, Emma had the privilege to arrange many things herself. Once she told me to fetch some drawing paper, but when I came back, someone accidentally spilled paint all over me. My messy, paint-stained photo was posted on the school forum and became everyone's joke. So when I decided to quit the art club, it was only natural that she wasn't happy about it. "You're quitting the art club? Does Ethan know?" she asked, frowning. "It's none of his damn business," I replied flatly. She didn't expect me to talk back like that. Before she could say another word, I took the teacher's signed approval form and walked away without looking back. The next few days were peaceful for once. I focused on my own things, not thinking about Ethan or Emma at all. Occasionally, I hung out with a few friends from the neighborhood, just enjoying the quiet simplicity. Then one night my phone rang. It was Ethan. His tone carried a pitiful hint. "Rachel, my stomach hurts. Can you bring me some medicine?" Ethan had always had stomach problems. He often forgot to bring his medication, and every time he was in pain, he would call me to deliver it. I was cold. "Ethan, did you forget we broke up?" There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then his voice came again, filled with helplessness. "Rachel, come on. Don't make such a big deal out of this. I'm giving you a chance to let this go, okay? It was my fault that day. I shouldn't have said you look bad in front of everyone. You've held this grudge long enough. I'm apologizing now. Isn't that enough? That tone, condescending, dismissive, as if his apology were a gift, almost made me laugh. But I didn't feel angry. Maybe once you've been disappointed in someone long enough, nothing they do can stir your emotions anymore. Ethan, I broke up with you and I meant it. I hung up immediately, sat there for a while, and quietly exhaled. Maybe my seriousness finally made him realize it was over, because after that, he didn't contact me again. A few days later, Luke mysteriously invited me out. I have a surprise for you, he said, refusing to explain further. He even told me to dress nicely and do my makeup. So I picked a Ralph Lauren dress and went to the meeting spot. As soon as I arrived, I saw Luke waving enthusiastically at me. And standing next to him was someone I recognized, Mason, a senior from my department. I hurried over, greeted them both, and gave Luke a questioning look. What's going on? Why is Mason here? Mason was one of the most admired students on campus. Handsome, brilliant, from a well-off family. He was the kind of guy who drew both admiration and envy wherever he went. Still, he was known for being distant and quiet, not the type to socialize much, so I couldn't imagine why he'd be here with Luke. Is he your boyfriend? I whispered to Luke, pulling him aside. He shook his head seriously. No, he's yours. I blinked, completely lost. What? Luke grinned mischievously and explained. Remember when I said I'd find you a better guy? So, I made a social media post, like a mini matchmaking ad with your photo, and a note saying parties can contact me. Guess who reached out? Mason. I stared at him in disbelief. As for how I got Mason's number, he continued, rubbing his nose. We added each other during last month's academic seminar. I had a question about the report, so I asked him directly. Anyway, that's not important. What matters is today's your date, so make a good impression. Okay, I'm counting on you. I couldn't believe it. Luke, my so-called trusted friend, was the most unreliable wingman ever. No matter how I glared at him, he pretended not to see. He handed us 2 tickets to an amusement park, waved cheerfully at Mason, and left without another word. I was so embarrassed I could have dug a hole in the ground with my toes. Mason seemed to notice and handed me a bottle of water with a polite smile. Don't be nervous. Just think of it as hanging out with a regular friend. Have you been here before? His tone was warm and natural, steady enough to make my heart calm down a little. He was as gentle and easygoing as he seemed, and little by little I started to relax. I assumed Mason must have had some reason for wanting to see me, that maybe he just asked Luke to arrange this meeting as a casual favor. After all, with his popularity and background, he could easily find any kind of girlfriend he wanted. Why would someone like him bother going on a blind date with me? The thought made me let go of my nervousness completely. I just focused on enjoying myself, picking out the rides I liked best while waiting for Mason to bring up whatever he wanted to talk about. He was patient and considerate. I tended to prefer the more thrilling attractions, but wearing a dress made it inconvenient. Without a word, Mason took off his jacket and draped it gently over my legs. For a moment I was startled. The gesture brought back a memory when I'd come to the same amusement park with Ethan before. Back then, whenever I wanted to go on a ride, he'd frown and scold me. These are too dangerous. You're wearing a dress. It's not appropriate. Don't go. People really were different. Just as that thought crossed my mind, I suddenly heard a familiar voice that felt almost like an illusion. Ethan's. But when I turned around, I realized it wasn't just in my head. Emma was right there, her arm looped tightly around Ethan's. At that exact moment, they looked straight at me. Ethan's face changed instantly when he saw me, and when his gaze shifted to Mason standing beside me, his brows furrowed sharply. He strode over, his voice harsh. Rachel, what are you doing here? The tone, restrained but full of accusation, was almost like catching someone in the act. I was momentarily at a loss for words. Before I could answer, Mason spoke up, calm but firm. Who are you and what's the problem? He took a step forward and suddenly his fingers intertwined with mine. I was startled but didn't pull away. His hand was large and warm, and somehow all my focus shifted to that warmth, leaving no room for Ethan. Ethan's face turned red with anger. He glared at me, his voice rising. We've only been broken up for less than a month and you've already found another man. I looked at him blankly. And what if I have? Do you expect me to stay single forever for you? I'd only wanted to throw the words back at him to make him feel a fraction of the humiliation I'd endured. But I didn't realize what I'd said sounded like an admission that Mason really was my boyfriend. When I realized it, I froze and glanced at him nervously. But to my surprise, he wasn't angry. The corners of his lips curved up slightly, amused. Just then Emma hurried over. Seeing the tension between the three of us, a flicker of confusion crossed her eyes. "Ethan," she said softly, tugging on his sleeve. "Let's go back, okay?" But Ethan didn't move. He looked shaken, almost desperate, his eyes darting from our joined hands to our faces. "No, that's impossible," he said quickly. "You're lying, right? You and Mason barely even knew each other before. How could you start dating this soon? You must have seen us here and decided to pretend, didn't you?" His words hit close to the truth and guilt pricked at me, but I couldn't let him see that. "Who said I'm lying?" I snapped back loudly. "He is my boyfriend." Ethan's face turned completely pale. Mason's expression didn't change. He simply placed a hand over my shoulder and said in a calm, steady voice, "Let's go." Without another glance at them, he led me away. Once we were far enough from Ethan and Emma, I quickly let go of Mason's hand and turned to him, embarrassed. "I'm so sorry, Mason. I just said that without thinking. If this causes you any trouble or misunderstandings later, I'll make sure to clear it up right away." I meant every word. After all, Ethan and Emma loved gossip, and Mason was a well-known figure on campus. If rumors spread because of this, it wouldn't be fair to him. But Mason suddenly bent down slightly, so his eyes were level with mine. He smiled faintly. "You don't have to apologize. I agreed to this date because I wanted to get to know you. So, if you tell people I'm your boyfriend, honestly, that makes me happy." I froze, my mind going blank for a second. Then I remembered what Luke had said earlier, that he'd posted about setting me up on a blind date, and Mason had been the one to respond. So Mason hadn't asked Luke to help him with something. He really had come here because of me. He hadn't asked Luke to arrange the date for some hidden reason. He had genuinely come for a blind date. But why? Mason met my eyes and smiled faintly. "You probably don't remember, but we've actually met before. I've liked you for a long time." "When?" I asked, embarrassed. I truly couldn't recall. He didn't seem disappointed by my forgetfulness. Instead, he simply said, "Then would you be willing to give me a chance?" His gaze was calm and sincere, but there was a trace of tension behind it, uncertainty, as if he was afraid I'd turn him down. For a moment I found myself caught by that look. But in the end I still refused. It wasn't because Mason wasn't good enough. It was because in my last life, I'd been hurt so deeply by Ethan that I couldn't bring myself to start another relationship so easily. Mason didn't get angry at my rejection. He only smiled gently and said, "That's all right." Meanwhile, Ethan was somewhere else, distracted, restless, completely out of sorts. Ever since leaving the amusement park, he had fallen into a strange state. Angry, anxious, panicked, and filled with regret. Even when Emma spoke to him, he didn't seem to hear her. His mind was filled entirely with thoughts of me, of Rachel. To be honest, Ethan had never really liked me at first. When he'd started dating me, it had only been because he wanted a girlfriend who was from a good family and devoted to him. The one he truly loved was Emma. But their relationship was doomed from the start. Though they weren't related by blood, they were raised as siblings, and his parents would never allow it. And me, I was beautiful, well-mannered, and came from a respectable family. Most importantly, I never hid my feelings for him. My love was open, burning, and obvious. So unlike Emma's quiet restraint, Ethan had once casually mentioned to me that he liked girls with long hair, and I had started growing mine out right away. He said he preferred gentle, graceful girls, so I changed everything about myself to fit that image. I quit the things I loved, distanced myself from my friends, and reshaped myself completely just to please him. He was addicted to that kind of devotion. He reveled in my love for him. But one day everything changed. I suddenly cut my long hair short, and then I told him I wanted to break up. Ethan had thought I was just throwing a tantrum. After all, right before that, Emma had insulted me in front of everyone, saying my haircut looked bad. And he, wanting to protect her, had echoed her words. "Yeah, it doesn't look good." In truth, he thought I looked stunning, fresh, confident, and new. But once he'd said it, he couldn't take it back. He'd assumed I wouldn't care, that I'd forgive him like I always did. Maybe I'd been embarrassed in front of everyone and was just overreacting for once. He never imagined I meant it. At the banquet that night, things had ended awkwardly. Ethan hadn't contacted me afterward, waiting instead for me to come back to him to beg for reconciliation like always. The first day passed, then the second. A week went by and still nothing. By then Ethan was getting anxious. One night, while drinking with his friends, someone teased him. "Hey, where's your girlfriend? Don't tell me you actually broke up." That was the first time Ethan decided to call me himself. Fine, he thought. I'll give her a chance to come back down from her pride. He told me over the phone that his stomach hurt and asked me to bring him medicine. He'd always had stomach problems and used that excuse often, sometimes forgetting his medication on purpose just to have me fuss over him. His friends' envious looks would make him feel proud. And when I scolded him gently while handing him the pills, he'd secretly feel a strange kind of sweetness. But this time when he called, expecting the same tenderness, all he heard was cold indifference. "Ethan, I broke up with you," I said. "And I mean it." He froze speechless. Then beneath his confusion, anger began to rise. Fine, he thought bitterly. If she wants to play this game, then so be it. It's just a breakup, right? Let's see who regrets it first, Ethan told himself. Rachel loves me so much. There's no way she'd really want to leave me. And even if we're apart for a while, so what? After all, Emma was always jealous whenever I was around Rachel. And the truth was, Emma was the one he had loved from the beginning. That's what he told himself. Yet every day he still found his eyes drifting to Rachel's social media. He checked her posts, scrolled through her updates, even tried to hear about her through mutual friends. He insisted he wasn't curious, just that he wanted to see how miserable she'd be after losing him. Then one day he overheard someone mention that Luke had bought 2 tickets to an amusement park. Rachel and Luke are going together. The thought made something twist sharply in his chest. He told himself it was nothing. He just wanted to go see for himself. Maybe they'd happen to run into each other. Maybe he could even apologize while he was at it. So he bought a ticket for the same day. He planned to go alone quietly, but somehow Emma found out. Her eyes lit up when she heard. "Ethan, you're taking me to the amusement park?" she said, voice sweet and hopeful. He looked at her pleading face and couldn't bring himself to refuse. He nodded reluctantly and later regretted it. But what came next made him regret it even more. When he arrived and saw Rachel standing beside another man, it felt like fire ripped through his chest, burning away every shred of reason and pride he had. He didn't think. He just stormed over, demanding answers, accusing her. Yet when Rachel looked at him, her eyes held no trace of sadness, no longing, not even anger, just calm disdain. For the first time, Ethan panicked. It hurt. Truly hurt. Even as she walked away hand in hand with Mason, his heart clenched so tight it felt like it might burst. Is it really over? He thought numbly. Can I really let her go? No, absolutely not. I didn't know what Ethan was thinking at the time because my own focus was elsewhere. I had a banquet to attend. When we parted ways that day, Mason had mentioned that his mother's birthday was coming up, and that she would be hosting a celebration. I'd like to invite you, he'd said gently. Don't feel pressured. There will be plenty of classmates there too. You can just think of it as coming as a friend. After thinking for a moment, I agreed. The guest list turned out to be extensive. Many people from our school had accepted the invitation. The Mason family was quite influential, and everyone wanted a chance to curry favor. To my surprise, I even spotted Ethan's family among the guests. Mrs. Adams noticed me quickly and came over with a warm smile. Rachel, she said kindly, you haven't come by the house lately. I was just telling Ethan I missed having you around. Mrs. Adams had always been a strict woman, but she'd been kind to me. In my previous life, she'd liked me very much. Otherwise, she wouldn't have approved of my relationship with Ethan. After we started dating, I often visited their home, but that was the past. Auntie, I said softly, Ethan and I have broken up. As I spoke, I glanced briefly at Ethan. Clearly, he hadn't told her yet. Mrs. Adams froze, her smile faltering. Then, her expression darkened as she turned sharply toward her son. "What's going on?" Ethan hesitated for a moment before saying, "It was my fault. I'll make it right. I'll win Rachel's forgiveness." Emma, standing beside him, looked uneasy. "Don't act like I don't know what you're thinking," she muttered under her breath, biting her lip. Mrs. Adams knew about their inappropriate closeness. That was exactly why she had opposed them before, because no matter what they claimed brother and sister, adopted or not, was still unacceptable. Turning back to me, Mrs. Adams took my hand gently. "Rachel, if Ethan upset you, I'll talk to him. Please give him another chance. I truly hoped you'd become my daughter-in-law." Emma's expression twisted with resentment as she looked at me. I opened my mouth, ready to refuse, but before I could speak, a familiar voice called out from behind me. "Rachel, there you are. I've been looking for you." I turned around and saw Mason approaching, dressed in a black suit that made him look effortlessly elegant and striking. He came up beside me, greeting Mrs. Adams and the others politely before extending his hand toward me in a gesture that felt both natural and intimate. Mason smiled politely and said, "May I have the honor of a dance?" I glanced briefly at Mrs. Adams and the others, who looked a bit awkward and unsure. Then I placed my hand gently into Mason's, offered a polite nod of farewell, and let him lead me away. Once we were out of sight, I whispered, "Thank you, Mason, for helping me out back there." He chuckled softly. "You're welcome. I really did want to help you, but I also really wanted that dance." In the end, I did dance with him. A graceful waltz, light and flowing, the melody elegant and romantic. As the music neared its end, Mason leaned close to my ear and said quietly, "Rachel, don't give Ethan another chance. You're far too good for him. He doesn't deserve you." Something warm spread through my chest, and my eyes stung as if tears might spill. In my previous life, I had constantly blamed myself, wondering if maybe I hadn't done enough, if that was why Ethan had betrayed me again and again. But now, reborn and clear-headed, I finally understood. It wasn't because I wasn't good enough. It was because he never knew how to cherish what he had. Still, remembering the pain of my past life left a bitter ache deep inside me. Mason's words, though simple, felt like a gentle wind brushing away that lingering resentment. If one person can't appreciate me, someone else will. After that night, my relationship with Mason grew closer. He made no effort to hide his feelings for me, and slowly, I began to open my heart to him. But this time I was different. I didn't throw all of myself into the relationship like I had with Ethan. I didn't sacrifice my pride, my hobbies, or my boundaries. I wouldn't let myself be hurt for love ever again. This time I wanted something real. A relationship where two people gave to each other equally, shared affection, respected one another, and grew together. That I thought was what love was supposed to be. But for some reason, Ethan suddenly began acting unusually attentive. He started sending me flowers, bringing me breakfast, leaving gifts in my locker. I refused every one of them. I told him countless times that I would never get back together with him. Yet he just wouldn't believe me. "After everything I've done for you," he said, "how could you say you don't love me? You're still mad at me, right?" I didn't know how to respond to his stubbornness anymore. But that wasn't the end of it. One day, a new post appeared on the school forum. The first thing people saw was my photo right beside two big bold words. Two-timing. The post was clearly an attack on me. It accused me of stringing Ethan along while seducing Mason at the same time. There were so-called proofs, photos of Ethan giving me gifts and pictures of Mason and me together. Alone, these might have just looked like ordinary rumors, maybe a messy love triangle at worst, but Mason was incredibly popular on campus. And with some people deliberately stirring the pot, it quickly blew up. Before long, people started giving me trouble. That day, when I went into the dance studio's changing room, I opened my locker and a dead rat covered in blood fell out onto the floor. Luke, who was with me, was so startled he nearly screamed. "What the hell, Rachel? What do we do?" I kept my voice calm. "We call the police." The police came quickly, and soon they caught the culprit, a young girl with her hair in a bun. When they brought her in, she looked terrified, clearly not expecting me to have actually reported her. She stammered, "I didn't mean anything serious. I just wanted to disgust you. You're the one who acts all flirty and shameless. Someone had to teach you a lesson." Luke's face darkened. He looked ready to hit her, but I stopped him and turned my gaze on the girl. She faltered under my stare, her voice trembling. What do you want? I didn't answer her. Instead, I looked at the officer beside me and asked calmly. This counts as intimidation, doesn't it? I won't accept mediation. If she can be charged, please go ahead and press charges. The girl's face went pale instantly. She began to tremble as the police led her away. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes as she was led away. Of course, I hadn't actually expected her to be jailed. Intimidation could be punishable by law, but only under serious circumstances. In her case, it would likely just be an apology and a fine. Still, people needed to learn that every action has consequences. Luke stood beside me, smirking with satisfaction. Guess that'll teach everyone a lesson. Scare one and the rest will think twice before messing with you. I gave him a look but said nothing. We both knew who the real culprit behind that forum post was. Luke offered. Want me to dig around, find out exactly who posted it? I shook my head. No need. I already know who it must be. It could only be one of two people, and I intended to confront them myself. I went to see Ethan first. He'd been hospitalized for stomach issues the past few days. When he saw me walk in, his expression lit up with surprise and relief. Rachel, you came to see me? I didn't bother with pleasantries. I pulled out my phone, opened the forum post and held it up to his face. Was this your doing? He looked at the screen carefully, confusion giving way to indignation and then hurt. How could you even think that? He genuinely didn't know. He'd been sick, bedridden, and disconnected from the outside world. He'd only heard about the incident today. I studied him in silence, then put my phone away. Fine, if it wasn't you, then I'll go. But as I turned to leave, Ethan grabbed my arm, his voice softening, pleading. Rachel, please don't be mad. I shouldn't have said those things about you in front of everyone. Can't you forgive me this once? From his perspective, he was lost. Everything had been fine between us before. How could something as small as a haircut cause a breakup? He didn't understand. That's why he'd convinced himself I was just being petty, that eventually I'd calm down and return to him. I stared at him quietly. Tell me, Ethan, do you really want to be with me? Or do you just want me to keep being Emma's substitute? He froze like he'd been struck by lightning, his voice dry and trembling. How? How did you know? I didn't answer. I simply pulled my arm free and walked out, but I hadn't expected him to chase after me. He came running out of the hospital barefoot, looking frantic and disheveled, and grabbed my arm again. Rachel, I admit it. I did think that way before, but I swear I don't like Emma anymore. I'm sure now the person I love is you. I looked at him, my voice flat. If you really love me, then stop chasing me. His face went pale as chalk. After leaving the hospital, I went straight to confront Emma. But this time I didn't go alone. I brought the police and a lawyer with me. At first, Emma denied everything. But when the police placed the evidence in front of her, her lips trembled. And after a long pause, she muttered, I only exaggerated a few things. It's not like I actually hurt you. Was it really necessary to call the police? I let out a cold laugh. Did you really think spreading slander and sexual rumors doesn't have consequences? Tears filled her eyes, but instead of remorse, she screamed at me hysterically. It's all your fault. Ethan only ever loved me. You're the one who took him away from me. You were never serious. You don't even know how much he means to me. You don't deserve him. He'll always be mine. Her voice cracked, wild and full of hatred. When the police took her away, Emma's face was twisted with resentment, an unsettling mix of forbidden love, defiance, and jealousy. The rejection she'd suffered from her adoptive family, her twisted obsession with Ethan, and her hatred toward me had driven her into something close to madness. Watching her like that, I couldn't explain why, but a chill crept through me. A sense of foreboding I couldn't shake, and soon that feeling proved right. News that Emma had been arrested for spreading false rumors spread quickly. Though she was released not long after, the story had already exploded across campus. People whispered about her everywhere she went. Someone even made another post on the school forum about what had happened. The title read, Those who harm others will eventually harm themselves. People said that Emma had finally gotten what she deserved, and that now she knew what it felt like to be the one everyone pointed fingers at. Because of the scandal, she didn't come to school for several days. But when she finally reappeared, she drove herself. That day, I had just finished class and was about to go meet Mason for our date, when the sudden roar of an engine tore through the air. The sound grew louder. Then came the screaming. I turned just in time to see a car speeding straight toward me. "Rachel, watch out." Mason reacted instantly. He grabbed me and yanked me to the side. The car grazed my skirt as it roared past. Emma slammed on the brakes, then turned her head to look at me. That look, filled with hatred and madness, froze my blood. She had completely lost her mind. Before anyone could react, she spun the wheel again and accelerated toward me a second time. People scattered in panic, screams echoing through the air. The scene was chaos. Mason pulled me aside once more, saving me just in time. But then came the sound of a terrible impact, a sickening thud. Blood splattered across the pavement. Emma's car had hit someone. It was Ethan. He lay motionless on the ground, covered in blood. Emma stumbled out of the car, screaming hysterically, "Ethan! Ethan!" No one saw exactly how he'd appeared in front of the car, but everyone knew. He'd thrown himself there to stop her. The ambulance arrived within minutes. The police came soon after. Both Ethan and Emma were taken away. I stood frozen, trembling. Mason pulled me gently into his arms, patting my back. "It's okay," he whispered. "It's over." 6 months passed. The dust finally settled. Emma was sentenced to life in prison. Ethan survived, but he lost a leg. He withdrew from school and disappeared from the public eye. Mason was about to graduate, ready to step into the next chapter of his life. At our graduation party, the dance club was performing one of the final shows of the night. I was among the performers. While I was backstage doing my makeup, one of the juniors came up and said, "Rachel, someone's looking for you." I walked out and saw Ethan sitting quietly in his wheelchair, watching me from across the hallway. His eyes were calm yet heavy, like someone who had aged years in a moment. When I approached, he gave me a faint smile. "You're living a good life in this lifetime, Rachel." In that moment, I realized Ethan had been reborn too. He remembered everything just like I did. I turned away without a word and walked back to the dressing room. Whatever we'd shared in our past life was over. In this one, I didn't want any ties to him anymore. Soon it was my turn to go on stage. Under the lights, surrounded by friends who shared my passions, I danced freely, unrestrained, alive. From the audience, Mason's eyes followed me with warmth and pride. As I looked at him, a memory suddenly resurfaced, one I hadn't thought of in years. When my mother had been hospitalized for an appendectomy, I had visited her every day. One afternoon, I'd seen a little boy crying alone in the hallway. To cheer him up, I danced for him right there in the hospital corridor. And the way that boy had looked at me back then, bright-eyed, full of wonder, was exactly how Mason was looking at me now.